I guess it is time. So let's see. Did it do it?
Yep.
Okay, good deal. So we start off these meetings. We're just a little over 7 o'clock, and it's time to get started again. And maybe I see one new face for sure. I don't know. Maybe I don't remember everybody who's come here. But if you're new to the class, if you care to just unmute yourself and say hello, or if you want to raise a hand and I can call on you and then you can unmute yourself if you feel uncomfortable. But we're just kind of curious how you found out about the classes and what you might expect to gain. We're happy to have you, of course, but we're just curious. So anybody who's new, first time, or hasn't been here for a really long time, whatever.
Hi, Charlie. It's Mary Allen and my husband, Craig. We're not doing video tonight. We're in Winnemucca in a hotel room. And we've been driving all day. We're exhausted.
Oh, wow. So welcome. Good to have you. And Winnemucca, huh?
Yep, we were at Zion's National Park over the weekend. Beautiful, beautiful vacation.
Zion and Bryce are some of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so good for you. Thanks for chiming in and good to have you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a reminder too about the movie social on Saturday. For anyone that hasn't signed up yet, you can sign up on the Eugene Plant-Based Providers website, eugeneplantbasedproviders.com, under the upcoming events, or also the link to the sign up is in the class newsletter that I sent out Sunday morning. So we have 43 people signed up so far, so should be good.
If you haven't thought about coming, think about it. It's fun. Anybody else have anything to share with the group? Or let's see what the gallery looks like here.
Oh, Charlie.
Yes, Velvet.
I just wanted to share that 2 years cancer-free. I had a repeat colonoscopy last week, no polyps, no nothing. I'll have a CT scan next week, but nothing at all. And I did not have nothing at all before I went plant-based. I always had polyps on my colonoscopies. So I don't know if it's related, but hey.
Well, you have polyps on every other colonoscopy you had, and then you become whole food plant-based and you don't have any. It would kind of make you believe that there might be something to this.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a quick story.
We're thrilled to hear that for you.
That's so great, Velvet. I have a quick story to add to that, if that's okay, about colon polyps. So my good friend, he's a bike buddy, but he moved back to Colorado. But his father died of colon cancer when he was in his late 60s, and so he had tons and tons of polyps. And so that my friend, he already started screening. I think he was only 35 or 40 because of his father's. Yeah, they have the familial hyperpolyposis, so tons and tons of polyps. And so he had 30 plus polyps, and he gets colonoscopies every 3 years ever since he was like, he's like 65, 64 now. And so he's almost the age his father died. And I turned him on to whole food plant-based probably 7 or 8 years ago now, maybe 8 years ago. And so every 3 years he's had colonoscopies since then. So his last colonoscopy before he changed his diet, he had 30 plus polyps. And when he had the next one, it was down to about 10 or 15. And then the one he had last year only had like 2 or 3. So that's
amazing.
So I told him, well, probably the next one you won't have any more. So and that's all just since his diet change.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I have a question.
Yes, Dorothea.
When you start taking turmeric as an anti-inflammatory, about how long does it take for it to kick in?
Should be right away. Should be right
yeah.
away.
It could be right away, and if it's not right away, you may potentially consider increasing it slightly. How much are you taking?
I just started today. I was only able to get to the grocery store for that. I took 1/8 of a teaspoon because I tasted it and I didn't like it. So I
Yeah,
thought I'd break it up into two 1/8 of a teaspoon. So it's a total of 1/4 of a teaspoon.
well, I have to second the motion. I didn't like it when I first tasted it either. And I didn't like dulse when I first tasted it either. And then I kept reading the science and learning about the benefits, and eventually
I
I
can't
learned
hear.
to
I
like
can't
it.
hear.
So
I
what are
can't
you
hear.
what are
You
you
can't
putting
hear?
it in, Dorothea?
I put it in some soup and I did not taste it.
Yeah, because usually I just put it on my salad. I don't even, to be honest, I don't even really taste it because I put it with so much other herbs and spices and stuff that, I was just making sure you weren't taking it straight or something. No, you could just put it on in your food. You probably wouldn't
Okay.
even notice it.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Scott?
Yeah,
Okay, so Dorothea, the other thing is, 1/4 teaspoon is probably the beginning amount, which would probably be the best. And starting with an 1/8 might work for you, putting it in soups or salads or whatever it is, disguising it. But if you can't take it because the taste is just too much for you, you can take the capsules. Try to make sure you get a pinch of pepper with them. Some capsules come with pepper in the capsule, or you could just add a little pepper to whatever other food you're eating when you take the capsule, and that'll keep you from having to taste it.
Well, what I added to my soup today, I did not taste. So
Yeah,
that's
good.
a positive.
Good. That's what you do. You disguise it, and your tongue and taste buds will gradually consider it a food as it's been exposed, maybe, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 times. And it'll get less and less offensive for you. And pretty soon you may even be like craving it. Why aren't I getting this today?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any thing to chime in about, either on turmeric or anti-inflammatory effect, benefits you've had, or anything else that you might like to talk about?
Dolly here.
Hello, Dolly.
Hello. I've been battling osteoarthritis for 40 years. And the last 10 years or so have been the most painful that I've experienced. And I remember one night, I was almost in tears talking to you guys. And you said, give the plant-based diet time and you'll start feeling much better. And I have to tell you that even with all the rain and cold weather we've been having, I feel really good today. And I'm sure that it's the plant-based diet.
Thank you for sharing that. Might help Dorothea to know. How long did it take you before you noticed that you were having less pain?
Me? Well, it's just been actually in the last 2 months, and I've been on the diet for 16 months.
Okay.
But I could feel a gradual letting go, and I haven't been taking ibuprofen or Tylenol for probably a good 2 weeks. So I'm feeling much better.
So the moral of that story, or this story, is don't give up.
Don't give up. And also, if you see a package in the store, like mayonnaise, for instance, or macaroni and cheese, and it says plant-based or vegan, don't believe it. It's got to be whole foods.
Foods like they're grown in nature. Very good advice. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. Marcia.
Oh, okay. Today, my daughter-in-law's sister has breast cancer. And today she had her 11th treatment. She's through with chemo, but radiation still goes on. Anyhow, she said their family has changed their lifestyle, like they're eating more fruits and vegetables. I go, well, good for them, but I guess they're still eating meat, but at least they're eating more fruit and vegetables. So more power. So I hope she beats this.
Yeah, we hope she does too. And the less inflammatory foods that she eats, the less likely she'll have recurrence. So that's one of the issues with the meats in the diet, especially the processed meats that are cancer promoting. So it's hard to convince people of that, but if they look at the World Health Organization's recommendations, they may discover processed meats being class 1 carcinogens, creating cancers, and a lot of people are just not aware about it.
Yeah.
And Marcia, I put a book recommendation in the chat. It's one of the books on our book list on the class website. You might want to
okay.
recommend that book for the person with the breast cancer.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah, it's my daughter-in-law's sister.
Okay.
Great.
So,
All right. Anybody else have something they'd like to chime in about before we go ahead and get started? Joan.
So I was wondering, I have a physical each year in the summer, and I've been doing this plant-based diet since this started at the start of the year. Should I have blood work done prior to my to that summertime visit to see where I stand with cholesterol and things like that?
It depends on whether you need motivation for doing something different in your life, or to continue on doing whole food plant-based. If you're feeling okay otherwise, requiring blood work could be a debatable topic. It can be a distraction. If you had a good cholesterol and you said, okay, I'm feeling good, now I'm going to go back and eat how I wanted to eat before, that could be a problem. If your cholesterol is not down quite low enough, it might motivate you to be a little bit more strict, like little less oil, less processed foods, if you're eating any of those sorts of things. So that there might be a benefit in doing blood work that way. If you're feeling weak or tired or fatigued in some way, doing thyroid screening seems reasonable to do, checking for anemia, those sorts of things. So when you do that, you kind of ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I getting this blood work? Is it to keep me motivated to keep doing what I'm doing? Am I doing the healthiest thing? And if it's not, it can be demotivating. So you just kind of have to decide for yourself what's going to work for you.
Well, I'm motivated with weight loss, so that's been great. And what my second motivation is to get off pills that I take for like cholesterol. And I don't know how soon I get to get off those pills.
Okay, so that may be dependent upon the provider that you are meeting up with. Some providers think once you're on those pills, you should be on them the rest of your life, no matter what your lab work shows. And others do not take that stance. Others say, hey, okay, you're doing something different with your life, your cholesterol, you're getting it under control, and it's looking good. And if you haven't had a stroke or a heart attack, the benefits of taking statins, if you look at the number needed to treat to get benefit, you find 1 person out of 104 treated over 5 years will be prevented from having a stroke or a heart attack. And there may be, 2 or 3 other people who actually suffer side effects. So you get to decide whether that's something you want to take. So you have really good goals and reasons to do what you're doing. And so I'd encourage you to just keep focusing on those goals. Everything you eat, choose to eat, you say, is this going to help me achieve my goal of weight loss? And we're going to talk about that a little tonight on the different diets, what diets do work well for weight loss. And I tend to place less emphasis on blood work unless a patient is really feeling bad.
Okay.
And then in general, if you're on a cholesterol medication or a blood pressure medication, most providers, including myself, usually recommend blood work at least once a year. Because before we want to refill a medication, you want to make sure you, with the cholesterol medication, make sure it's not injuring your liver, so your liver enzymes aren't too high. If you're on any kind of blood pressure medication, you got to check the kidneys. So in general, prior to a physical, usually you'll get annual blood work. So it's just kind of that's kind of the standard of care.
Thank you.
Nancy.
There, got myself unmuted. Thanks. Yeah, you know, I usually kind of just sit back and take everything in and take notes, but I really want to address and reinforce what you just said about statins. I was on statins for a while, been a long time now, because it was the most miserable time of my life. I got the side effects and it was brutal. It was brutal. And I took myself off. I couldn't stand it anymore. I mean, literally, I was in so much pain and misery, the muscles, I got the whole gamut. And, you know, it was not, my quality of life was absolutely down. So after switching to diet change and I'm still not 100% perfect, but I'm, you know, not bad. The diet change and exercise, my cholesterol is perfect now and has been for a long time, but I tell you, that was highly motivating. I don't know, I guess maybe they work, but there's such a hammer on your body, you know, when you have options that are totally wholesome options. So I vote for your pause there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a note in the chat about what's the rationale for staying on statins for the rest of your life. I think there's evidence that's reasonable that if you've had a heart attack or a stroke, and you're placed on a statin, and there may be some reduced morbidity or mortality connected with the rest of your life. And staying on a statin at that point, probably, I don't know what the number needed to treat or number needed to harm is for that particular condition. But I generally don't tend to discourage people from staying on a statin if they've had a heart attack or a stroke. But if you haven't had a heart attack or a stroke, again, you look at the number needed to treat. One person out of 104 over a 5-year period will have one stroke or heart attack prevented. But there will be a couple or a few people who actually suffer some of the side effects like Nancy has been talking about. And so you get to make a choice based upon that information. Of course, taking statins will lower your cholesterol number. The less cholesterol you have in your body, the less building blocks to build up plaque in your arteries. So that is an advantage of taking statins, but it doesn't really treat the root cause of why you're having that cholesterol buildup in the first place. It's just lowering the cholesterol level. And if you're able to lower your cholesterol by making healthy lifestyle choices through your diet and exercise and reducing stress in your life, whatever, then that would be much preferable for the vast majority of us.
Yeah, and I will note that meditation and other stress reduction practices were also a factor. So you've talked about that before. I wanted to reinforce that too. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Scott, do you have anything else to interject at this moment before I carry on with various diets?
No, go for it.
Okay, everybody, we'll hopefully have time to do some other things, but I went on a journey today. I went searching around for different diets, and I came up, I was just like, I've seen things which I've never seen before. There were so many diets, I couldn't believe it. And let's see, I'm gonna have to, here it is, pull this up. I started listing them out. This is kind of small. Let's see, I guess I can kind of highlight this and make it larger for those of you who could see this. These are some of the diets and diet issues that I just want to kind of run through with you very quickly. Let's see. Can you see that okay? That big enough?
Yeah,
I
that's
hope.
good.
Okay, so I thought about this, and so I started reading about this and reading about different diets, and man, it's confusing. There are so many. Scott mentioned a number of these last week, but I want to run through a few more. There's the animal-based diets, which are the carnivore diet, where you're just eating meat. The Atkins diet, which is low carb, you're eating less than maybe 30 grams of carbohydrates a day. 30 grams of carbohydrate is about 120 calories. Let's see, an apple, I don't know, 70 to 100 calories maybe in a medium-sized apple. That's the amount of carbohydrates you get for the day. I just can't conceive of someone staying on that for very long. It's a really high meat or protein and fat diet. Then there's the keto. Why do people do these diets? The main reason people are doing diets generally is for weight loss, but there are other reasons for doing diets. If it's not weight loss, it might be getting off of pills, which we heard tonight. The other reason might be if not getting off of pills and you're not concerned about your diet, maybe you've heard some stuff about you can live longer and live healthier. And so longevity may be a reason why you choose to alter your current diet. Keto, we've discussed that a lot, but we'll discuss it more. And again, it's a very low carbohydrate diet. It's very similar to Atkins. I think of them in a similar kind of manner. Paleo is you're eating grass-fed meats and seafood, fresh fruits and vegetables, eggs, nuts, seeds. And it says healthy oils. You know, some people don't believe that there are healthy oils and other people do. So for those of you who are new to this, you're just saying, well, are there healthy oils? And let's discuss that. What oils might be healthy or might not be healthy? There's coconut and avocado and olive and walnut. Anyway, the paleo diet, no cereal grains, no legumes, including peanuts, legumes. You know, the thing that's confusing about this is the blue zones where the people live the healthiest and the longest lived with the least amount of disease in the world are eating legumes. And here's a diet that's saying don't eat legumes or your beans and lentils and peanuts. Paleo says eat dairy or don't eat dairy, which, you know, I agree with. Refined sugars, all of us agree that's not a healthy choice. Refined vegetable oils, don't eat. Potatoes, don't eat. I eat a lot of potatoes, so maybe I'm on the wrong track. Processed foods, you shouldn't eat. I would agree 100% with that. And don't be adding a bunch of salt to your food. That's a good suggestion. So you'll notice there are components which you agree with, and there may be components you disagree with. But if you get on the bandwagon and you become a believer, you may start following things which may not have the scientific evidence, the evidence-based science behind them to really make them healthy choices. I really didn't know about the lion diet. I don't know if all of you know about it, but that you eat meat from ruminant animals. These are hoofed animals. that funnel energy from plants more efficiently than other herbivores. They've got a special stomach which ferments the food or whatever it does. I don't know, but it's a meat-only diet. So it's purported to heal a leaky gut. And the target audience for this diet is those people who have autoimmune disease. They've been jumping from one doctor to another doctor to another doctor who just hasn't been able to figure out how to help these people. So they'll resort to what? Only eat meat from these ruminant animals. Now, they say that a whole food plant-based diet is extreme, but let me tell you, I get pretty bored from just eating animal flesh all day long without having any fruit, vegetables, or whole grain. So the lion diet is not particularly on my list of first choices. I doubt that it'll be on yours unless you're living like an Eskimo or way up north where you may not have much access to other foods. Grain brain, wheat belly. These are more, again, hot, low carbohydrate kind of diets. You'll see the books, the authors write them. They sound good. They make sense. It's like, well, should we believe it or not? Well, I must tell you, I got sucked in by the Zone diet. It sounded good. 40% carbohydrate, 30% fat, 30% protein. I was bought in hook, line, and sinker. I was like, that's what I'm doing. I did it for several years. I was really careful to count and, make sure I was doing the right thing. And my weight stayed 30 pounds more than what I am right now. And my cholesterol level stayed up above 200. And it didn't bring me the health that a whole food plant-based diet brought me. But, I was just like anyone else in the general public. I had not researched this on my own. I didn't know what was healthy, and it sounded good, and a lot of these sound good. Then there's Weight Watchers, and that's been around for a long, long time. I thought I had a note about Weight Watchers somewhere here. Yeah, Weight Watchers tracks food by counting points. They give points to certain foods. So you save up these points, and if you can save enough points, you can kind of use these points for indulging in certain foods that may not be so healthy. I guess if you're an accountant and you like to be counting numbers, that may be a fun thing for you to do. For me, I don't like to count what I'm doing. And so that's not particularly for me. And I don't mean to make fun of any of the diets, but I want to add a little lightness and humor to all of this. So if you happen to be on these or know people who are doing it, try to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt and pretend I'm trying to emulate John McDougall, who's a very opinionated guy. And yet he really does follow the science. So he is a trustworthy guy. And I'm just kind of showman for the various kinds of diets you may be exposed to. And the reason I'm sharing these with you is because I want you to understand that I understand this is confusing for you and the general public. There's the South Beach diet. If you eliminate refined carbohydrates, I agree completely. Get rid of the white sugar, get rid of the white flour. And it's not really flour, F-L-O-W-E-R, it's F-L-O-U. RE, whatever. Lean protein is what they want you to eat. Well, that means meat in my mind, lean protein, as opposed to eating plant protein. Low fat dairy. I don't see any benefit in eating dairy because of the IGF-1 and the other issues with not being able to break down the lactose. And there are so many issues associated with dairy that we'll talk about those maybe later. And then they say you eliminate even, let's see, healthy carbs, including whole grains, vegetables, and fruit. Well, I guess you can eat those. You eat healthy carbs like whole grains, vegetables, and fruit. similar to the DASH diet. That's the diet for reducing hypertension. It has less saturated fat than an Atkins diet, but it's still in the same category of a low carb diet. Then we have a whole bunch of plant-based diets. And if this doesn't drive you nuts, I don't know what will, because there's been a lot of warring where between the plant-based community about which diet is the best. Should you have nuts? Shouldn't you have nuts? How much oil should you have? Should you have any or should you have none? So you have a bunch of diets to be thinking about when you want to go plant-based. There's the whole food plant-based world in which we're a part of at this point. There's the vegan diet, and we don't want you to just be vegan. We want, because you can be eating Oreo cookies and a lot of oily French fries, which are not particularly healthy foods. So you can be a junk food vegan, and we don't want that for you. Vegetarian is a healthier option than a standard American diet. You're eating some eggs and eating some animal products, dairy, milk and cheese and those sorts of things, which don't have a lot of health benefit, but you know, it's probably better than most of the standard American diets. Then there's the Mediterranean, which tries to be the balance. And you'll hear this diet promoted most by the news media, by the medical profession, of which we're a part of. And we're going to go over a video today about what the difference between the Mediterranean diet and the whole food plant-based, which may provide you the better benefit. But Mediterranean is whole grains, fruits and vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds. Sounds just like we've been talking about. The main difference is they encourage a bit more olive oil, some lean meat and fish is what the Mediterranean is promoting. So it's not a huge difference, but it is some difference. And it may make a difference if you're trying to lose weight and other things. But if you were raised on a Mediterranean diet from the time you were a child, you'd probably be pretty healthy and get by in this world well. If you're raised in a standard American diet and eating the high fat, salt and sugar diet, then you may have developed the diseases to the point that eating a Mediterranean diet may not get you the benefit that you want, the reversal of the diabetes, the reversal of the heart disease. In fact, the only diet that's ever been shown to reverse the clogging in the coronary arteries is this right here, whole food plant-based diet. Well, I have to alter that a little. Ornish did allow some yogurt, I think, and maybe fish occasionally. So, but he did other things besides just diet. He, exercised you and put you in group therapy and taught you to love more and hate less. And so it's hard to sort it out completely. But I know Esselstyn just used the diet, and his studies showed the reversal, just as Ornish's did. Flexitarian is like a semi-vegetarian, but it also may have a few times a month, you may have some animal protein, up to maybe 20% of the diet, 80% is plant. Again, the flexitarian group tends to still be overweight. In the study that I've seen from Dr. Greger on one of his videos, healthier than standard American diet, but still using a fair amount of animal protein. Then there's the DASH diet, the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. Very similar to what we're talking about, fruits and vegetables. They do add low-fat dairy, whole grains, lean meats and nuts, low sodium. There's the MIND diet, to keep you from getting dementia and those sorts of things. It's a plant-based diet. There's McDougall's diet, and he's the starch solution. He keeps telling you, eat the starches. What are they? Potatoes and rice and beans and whole grains, barley, the barley men he talks about, the Aztecs with the corn, how these civilizations thrived on eating starch, and then adding some fruit and vegetable with it provides you the best health. And, the more I've been doing this, the more I'm coming around to see McDougall is probably right about many, many things. Barnard, he's the diabetic, reverse diabetes. And, it's similar to what we've been teaching you and what the majority of these diets are doing. There's Esselstyn, reversing heart disease, the Engine 2, which is Esselstyn's son, where I think he allows some nuts, where his father is like, don't eat the nuts. I'm not exactly sure of that, but Ornish diet is for cardiac rehab. There's the Nutritarian diet by Furman, and he talks about bombs, greens, beans, onions, mushrooms. I can't think of what the other one is.
Berries and seeds.
Thank you, Scott. And there's the cabbage soup diet. I really have never heard of that, but it's an eating plan designed to help with quick weight loss. You do it for 7 days. It's low in fat and high in fiber, and you eat cabbage several times a day for 1 week. And why would you do that? Well, you might do that if you wanted to fit into a dress for a wedding, or if you wanted to lose weight quickly, not something you're going to do for long term. Then there's the alkaline diet. That's fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts and legumes, but no wheat, or pasta, or meat, or fish, or shellfish, or dairy, or tea, or coffee, or sugar, or alcohol. This, you want to alkalinize your body, and that promotes health, and there may be some benefits to that diet. But there could be disadvantages. And then there are other diets. This goes on into infinity almost. I'm almost done here. Blood type diet. Boy, that sounds good. If I have blood type O, eating certain foods seems to make sense. If I have blood type A, I'll eat other foods. Well, the problem is there's really no documented science that works. And so that brings us to Gundry's plant paradox. And Scott mentioned this. It's just plain not true. The references he uses are just not backed up. And it's a hoax, basically, this plant paradox that you shouldn't eat beans because of the lectins. And you can watch the video that Scott recommended last week. I'm going to come back to the fasting, intermittent fasting. I'm going to go to Go Low. You see that on the advertisement. Buy a supplement for weight loss. We've been telling you all along, don't waste money. Get your supplements from real food. The supplements are like taking an instrument from like a flute from a Mozart concert and putting another 100 flutes with them on another stage and playing the same Mozart symphony. It's not the same. So, buying supplements for weight loss, it's generally been a scam. You may lose some weight for a while. There may be some placebo effect, but it's generally not long lasting. So I'd be careful to shy away from that. The Noom is also in the news lately. You restrict your calories down to 1,200 calories a day. I'd be pretty hungry if I were just eating 1,200 calories a day. Some of you may be able to tolerate that, but ultimately I'd be back munching away and gaining more weight than I lost. So you may want to take that in consideration. We've talked about Weight Watchers. There's HelloFresh. This is for those people who don't want to cook. So you can get food delivered to your doorstep for a fee. I don't know what that is, probably a lot more than I would want to spend. But, for those of you who are working and you want to have food delivered to your house, that's the HelloFresh diet. Then there's gluten-free diets. People with celiac disease really need to take note of and probably follow. But not for everybody, because there are actually health advantages to having gluten in your diet, and Gregor outlines those in videos. There's the Whole30 diet. It's not intended for weight loss. It's a stricter version of a paleo style diet. The aim is to eliminate processed foods, focus on whole foods, but it lasts only 30 days. So those are the different diets. The one we didn't talk about is fasting and intermittent fasting, which is currently in vogue, probably as much so as keto. It may be used to kickstart your health journey. If you're having problems with weight loss and you're doing totally whole food, plant-based and following what Scott and I have to tell you and nothing is happening in your life, you may wish to try some fasting for a day or two or some intermittent fasting, restricting the time that you eat during the day. And there are studies that actually show there can be benefit not only in weight loss, but also in longevity. If you kind of restrict your eating to maybe a 6 or 8 hour period throughout the day and then have a 14 or 16 hour period in which you don't eat anything. Okay, any questions on that before we go on? We've gone over a lot of different diets and I have carried on way too much for a moment. So I had fun doing that. And I had fun looking up those various things and seeing diets that I really had not done anything with or paid any attention to. But boy, it is confusing out there. Anybody been confused, try anything, they had a bad result or they, want to share, they had a good result? Tell me, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I did Noom a while ago, like almost a decade ago, and I had some okay results, but like you said, I was hungry all the time. And like I've been feeling hungry like that recently on this new diet, but it's like it's not the same. I don't know how to describe it. Like it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so if you're feeling hungry on eating whole plant foods, then you just need to kick up and eat more. You need to just add some more fruit or vegetables or potatoes. Just eat bigger quantities so you shouldn't have to feel hungry at all. And the calorie density is so low, you're not going to gain weight. You're going to keep your ideal body weight and it'll be okay. Just a thought.
Okay. And potatoes. Potatoes are magic.
Yeah, potatoes are great.
As it turns
I
out.
love them.
I never liked potatoes my entire life, and now I eat them every night.
Okay, good deal. Okay, Marcia, then Kara.
Okay. I went to South Beach and I kept the weight off for quite a few years. It was okay. What surprised me, it has meat, and the guy was a cardiologist doctor that wrote that. And then I tried Weight Watchers, didn't do good on that at all.
Okay, the other Marcia.
Okay, I ate the standard American diet for almost 69 years. And when my hands swelled up, I thought, oh, this is arthritis. And I had been doing some genealogy and I knew how my parents died. I knew how my grandparents died. And I thought, ooh, this is my destiny. So I went in, I knew arthritis was inflammation. So I said, what causes inflammation in the body? And it took me to YouTube to Dr. Neil Bernard. And he said, don't eat meat, dairy, and oil. I said, well, what do you eat? You don't know what to eat. But I mean, I figured it out because there's really not much out there. And it was the first I had heard. I thought I was a vegan and I stopped calling myself a vegan because people said, oh, you're vegetarian. No. So now I go whole food plant-based. And so, it's just a wonderful, I never am hungry eating a whole food plant-based diet. Never.
Well, I'll second that. Neither am I.
Yeah, it's good.
Thanks for
I do.
sharing
It's
that.
the best diet in the whole. It's not a diet; it's a lifestyle.
Very good. Okay, Kyra.
I, like you, had tried the Zone years ago, and it was interesting and it satiated me when I had it balanced, but again, not sustainable. I was also in and out of Weight Watchers. I hit goal weight, one thing that was good about Weight Watchers to talk to you about when you were hungry, were you eating because you were physically hungry or emotional? So it also took care of a lot of the emotional aspects I hadn't looked at as far as behaviors and foods. But long-term, it just kept changing their plans over and over, and it just stopped working. And then I started classes in October. I turned it on and did it for the first time on January 1st, and I'm down almost 22 pounds. I'm off all my meds. I'm never hungry. My food is beautiful. It tastes great. It's easy. It's trickier when I get out in the world, but I work remotely, so I'm out less, though I hope to move up to where y'all are so I can do some of this stuff. So if somebody knows some rentals, let me know. But this I can easily see, this is a lifetime. It's just really good. I feel good, no pain, no inflammation, weight loss, energy. I mean, it's perfect.
And it probably costs you less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Kyra. That's great.
Linda.
I've probably tried just about all the diets. And failed miserably at them all. I find Weight Watchers makes a lot of money on repeat clients.
Uh-huh.
I even did Jenny Craig, which worked great for a while, but you have to buy their food, which after a while you realize is just crap. It's not only miserable small amount of calories, but you're getting like a beef noodle soup with like gristle and noodles in it, and it was disgusting. So I stopped doing that. Probably the best success I had was with Dr. Furman's G-Bombs, and I still remember it's greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. And I haven't lost a lot of weight. I've been doing this. I started coming to the classes with my friends when Scott had them at the church, probably about 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
And I've been eating this way ever since. I don't think you could force me to put a bite of animal flesh in my teeth. And now, I mean, I do it both for my health and for the animals. But I feel better. I have a lot of physical problems. I'm 68 years old, and I got so upset about my weight that I actually had weight loss surgery. So my digestive system is really messed up, but I feel a lot better eating this way, and I don't think I'll ever change. I do have a couple of follow-up appointments up at OHSU to try to address some of my issues. I made an appointment in January to see someone, and I have an appointment with them on May 31st. And then the bariatric endocrinologist wants to see me, and my appointment is on November 4th.
Wow.
But I think I'll just keep hanging in there and doing the best I can. I love the food, and I'll just keep at it.
Okay, make sure you're getting vitamin B12.
Yeah, I do.
And vitamin D3.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Linda. Joan.
I like that that it is a lifestyle. It's not a diet. And I don't have guilt. With Weight Watchers, I always had guilt that I didn't record my points, that I should record my points, that did I want to cheat and have that point and not record it? And this is just not, I don't have the guilt. And I also have the confidence with reading things like reading the China study and the sugar, salt, fat. I now have the knowledge why I'm eating, and I'm having a lifestyle, not a diet.
Very good. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, I want to carry on with a few more issues. I'm going to go back to where I was on my videos here. And I want to share the next video is the problem with paleo diet argument. Here we go. Let's start with this.
Our epidemics of dietary disease have prompted a great deal of research into what humans are meant to eat for optimal health. In 1985, an influential article was published proposing that our chronic diseases stem from a disconnect between what our bodies evolved eating during the Stone Age, during the last 2 million years, and what we're stuffing our face with today, advocating for a return towards a hunter-gatherer type diet of lean meat, fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Though it may be reasonable to assume our nutritional requirements were established in the prehistoric past, the question of which prehistoric past remains. Why just the last 2 million? We've been evolving for 25 million years since our common great ape ancestor, during which our nutrient requirements and digestive physiology were set down, and therefore probably little affected by our hunter-gatherer days at the tail end. So what were we eating for the first 90% of our evolution? What the rest of the great apes ended up eating, 95+% plants. This may explain why we're so susceptible to heart disease. For most of human evolution, cholesterol may have been virtually absent from the diet. No bacon, butter, trans fats, and massive amounts of fiber, which pulls cholesterol from the body. Now this could have been a problem since our body needs a certain amount of cholesterol, so our bodies didn't just evolve to make cholesterol, but preserve it, recycle it. Our bodies evolved to hold on to cholesterol. So if you think of the human body as a cholesterol-conserving machine, and plop it into the modern world of bacon, eggs, cheese, chicken, pork, and pastry, well then no wonder artery-clogging heart disease is our #1 cause of death. What used to be so adaptive for 90% of our evolution, holding on to cholesterol at all costs since we ain't getting much of it in our diet, is today maladaptive, a liability leading to the clogging of our arteries. It seems our bodies just can't handle it. As the editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Cardiology noted 25 years ago, no matter how much fat and cholesterol carnivores eat, they do not develop atherosclerosis. You can feed a dog 500 eggs worth of cholesterol and a stick of butter, and they just wag their tail. Their bodies, evolved from wolves, are used to getting, eating, and getting rid of excess cholesterol, whereas within months, a fraction of that cholesterol can start clogging the arteries of animals adapted to eating a more plant-based diet. Even if our bodies were designed through natural selection to eat mostly fruit, greens, and seeds for 90% of our evolution, why didn't we better adapt to meat eating in the last 10% during the Paleolithic? We've had nearly 2 million years to get used to all that extra saturated fat and cholesterol. If a lifetime of eating like that clogs up nearly everyone's arteries, why didn't the genes of those that got heart attacks die off and get replaced by those that could live to a ripe old age with clean arteries regardless of what they ate? Because most didn't survive into old age, didn't live long enough to get heart attacks. When the average life expectancy is 25, then the genes that get passed on are those that can just get us to reproductive age by any means necessary, and that means not dying of starvation. So the higher the calorie foods, the better. So eating lots of bone marrow and brains, human or otherwise, would be a selective advantage, as would discovering a time machine stash of Twinkies, for that matter. If we just have to live long enough to get our kids to puberty to pass along our genes, then we don't have to evolve any protections against the ravages of chronic disease. To find a population nearly free of chronic disease in old age, we don't have to go back 1 million years. In the 20th century, networks of missionary hospitals in rural Africa found coronary artery disease virtually absent, and not just heart disease, but high blood pressure, stroke, diabetes, common cancers, and on down the list. In a sense, these populations in rural China and Africa were eating the type of diet we've been eating for 90% of our last, 20 or so million years, right? A diet almost exclusively of plant foods. Right? How do we know it was their diet that protected them and not something else? Well, in the 25-year update to their original paleo paper, They tried to clarify, look, they did not then and do not now propose that people adopt a particular diet just based on what our ancient ancestors ate. Dietary recommendations must be put to the test. That's why the pioneering research of Pritick and Ornish and Esselstyn is so important, showing that plant-based diets can not only stop heart disease, but have been proven to reverse it in the majority of patients. Indeed, it's the only diet that ever has, perhaps because that's what we ate throughout the vast majority of our evolution.
I wasn't going to stop, but I have to stop. Why do I have to stop? I have to stop because I have to re-emphasize what he just said. The Esselstyn and Ornish studies showed coronary artery unclogging, reversal of heart disease, our #1 killer. 1 out of 2 of us is going to die of heart disease, and it doesn't have to happen in our country. It doesn't happen in countries that are plant-based. Not to the extent it happens here, and it rarely happens in countries that are almost totally plant-based. So if you get one thing from this lecture, no matter how many confusing diets there are in this world, and knowing how motivated you are to pay for a supplement or some solution to the problem that you have, always keep in your mind, is what I am doing, is it going to actually prolong my life, save me from having the heart attack that I might be destined to have, or the diabetes, or the high blood pressure, which comes from the stiffening of your arteries that occurs after you keep hitting them with meal after meal of inflammatory foods. Okay, I rant every so often, only to kind of keep you from falling asleep. And now that you're awake, I'm going to go back. I'm awake anyway. I'm going to go back and play the next video. And am I having fun? Of course I am. And I hope you are too, a little bit. Paleo diets may negate the benefits of exercise. I can't tell you how many people have told Scott and I that, hey, we're exercising and we're really keeping healthy because we exercise a lot. So let's see what the diet may do to the exercise in your life.
Much of the low-carb and paleo reasoning revolves around insulin. To quote one random blogger, carbohydrates increase insulin, the root of all evil when it comes to dieting and health. So the reasoning goes, because carbs increase insulin, we should stick mostly to meat, which is fat and protein, no carbs, so no increase in insulin, right? Wrong. We've known for half a century that if you give someone just a steak, no carbs, no sugar, no starch, their insulin goes up. Carbs make your insulin go up, but so does protein. In 1997, an insulin index of foods was published, ranking 38 foods on which stimulates insulin levels the most. What do you think causes a larger insulin spike? A large apple and all its sugar, a cup of oatmeal packed with carbs, a cup and a half of white flour pasta, a big bunless burger, no carbs at all, or half a salmon fillet? What do you think? The answer is the meat. Now, they only looked at beef and fish, but subsequent data showed that there's no significant difference between the insulin spike from beef versus chicken or pork. They're all just as high. Thus, protein and fat-rich foods may induce substantial insulin secretion. In fact, meat protein causes as much insulin release as pure sugar. So, based on their own framework, if they really believe insulin is the root of all evil, then low-carbers and paleo folks would be eating big bowls of white spaghetti day in, day out before they'd ever touch meat. Yes, having hyperinsulinemia, too high levels of insulin in the blood, like type 2 diabetics have, is not a good thing. It may increase cancer by like 10%. But if low-carb and paleo people stuck to their own theory, if it's all about insulin, then they would be telling everyone to eat vegetarian. It's vegetarians have significantly lower insulin levels, even at the same weight. It's true for ovo-lacto vegetarians. It's true for lacto-vegetarians and vegans. Those who eat meat have up to 50% higher insulin levels. Put someone on a strictly plant-based diet, a man, woman, young, old, skinny, or fat, and you can significantly bring their insulin levels down within just 3 weeks on this kind of healthy vegan diet. And then just by adding egg whites back to their diet, you can increase evil insulin production 60% within 4 days. What if you take people and add carbohydrates, double their carbohydrate intake? You can bring their insulin levels down. Why? Because they weren't feeding people jelly beans and sugar cookies. They were feeding people whole plant foods, lots of whole grains, beans, fruits, and vegetables. What if you put someone on a very low-carb diet, like an Atkins diet? Low-carb advocates assumed that would lower insulin levels. Dr. Westman here is the new Dr. Atkins after the old Dr. Atkins died overweight, according to the medical examiner, with a history of heart attack, congestive heart failure, and hypertension. But Dr. Westman was wrong. No significant drop in insulin levels on very low-carb diets. What they got is a significant rise in their LDL cholesterol levels, the #1 risk factor for our #1 killer, heart disease. Now, Atkins is an easy target, though, right? No matter how many extra new Atkins diets that come out, it's still old news. What about paleo? The paleo movement gets a lot of things right. They tell people to ditch dairy and donuts, eat lots of fruits, nuts, and vegetables, cut out a lot of processed junk. But this new study is pretty concerning. Take a bunch of young, healthy folks, put them on a Paleolithic diet along with a CrossFit-based, high-intensity circuit training exercise program. Now, if you lose enough weight exercising, you can temporarily drop your cholesterol levels no matter what you eat. I mean, you can see that with stomach stapling surgery, tuberculosis, chemo, a good cocaine habit. I mean, just losing weight by any means can lower cholesterol, which makes these results all the more troubling. 10 weeks of hardcore workouts and weight loss, and LDL cholesterol still went up. And it was even worse for those that started out the healthiest. Those starting out with really good LDLs, under 70, had a 20% elevation in LDL, and their HDL dropped. Right? Exercise is supposed to boost your good cholesterol, not lower it. The paleo diet's deleterious impact on blood fats was not only significant, but substantial enough to counteract the improvements commonly seen with improved fitness and body composition. Exercise is supposed to make things better. Put people instead on a plant-based diet and a modest exercise program, mostly just walking-based, and within 3 weeks can drop their bad cholesterol 20% and their insulin levels 30%, right, despite the 75 to 80% carbohydrate diet. Whereas the paleo diets appear to negate the positive effects of exercise.
Okay, so that would be pretty discouraging if you were exercising and you went on a paleo diet and you found that your cholesterol levels were rising. Wouldn't be very motivating, yeah? Okay, any questions before we carry on? I've got a couple more videos I want to share with you, unless you have some question that you want us to answer in the interim. All right, I'm gonna keep carrying on.
Dolly here.
Okay, Dolly, go for it.
Could you please explain to all of us about triglycerides? Because that has a lot to do with diet as well. Mine are very high, even though I'm on the whole food plant-based. Can't seem to get those down, but I know it has something to do with diet.
Yeah, so how high are the triglycerides that you have?
They're up to 307.
Well, that's not like 500 or 2,000, as I've seen in some people. And you know, I think, I don't know, Scott is up to 150 normal, something like that.
Yeah, ideal is less than 150.
Do you want to address that issue a little bit?
Sure.
I've been talking my head off and I want to
Yeah,
give you
yeah.
a full chance.
Yeah, so most the foods that mostly raise triglycerides, so they're neutral fats and that float around in the bloodstream. And so it's usually the biggest culprits would be white sugar, white flour, alcohol, fruit juice, oil, and then any kind of fatty animal products. So meats. But like a example, I've always had trouble with my triglycerides too, and here's just a really good example. And so, and there's a genetic component as well. So people just have a little bit higher triglycerides. I'd had mine down to about 70, but a lot of times they were 150 to 200 in that range. And I'd had it down when I was eating really, really strict, had it down into the 70s. But one time, I think it was one of the last times I had my cholesterol checked, which has been a few years ago now. But actually I had the day before, so I was completely fasting, but the day before I had my blood drawn, I had a bagel and a beer. So just you know, having a bagel and a beer, the next day my triglycerides were close to 200. So it's the alcohol and the flour from the bagel. So but I'm really sensitive, but other people might not be that sensitive. So and then some people can even their triglycerides can go up a little bit even with fruit. It's pretty rare with fruit, but it can happen. So if you're somebody that, you know, all the other foods I mentioned you're not eating, and then you're eating like, you know, 6, 8, 10 servings of fruit a day. Some people have some elevations in triglycerides from the fruit sugar, but in general it's the fruit juice that's the problem, not the whole fruit. But yeah, so white sugar, white flour, alcohol, fruit juice, oil, anything fried or fatty meats. Those are the things that usually raise triglycerides.
Well, I'm on no to all of those, so.
So I might also want to add to that. I agree with everything Scott has said. But remember, triglycerides are only one risk factor, and a number of people may have, you know, the normal range incorporates like 98% of the population, maybe 99%, but there are outliers. And if you don't have other risk factors, you're not producing trimethylamine N oxide, some other inflammatory products. That's helpful. If you're a bit overweight, you're producing cytokines, which the effect of the cytokines leads to inflammation, and how that's affecting how your body metabolism is, whether that's leading to an overproduction of triglycerides. As your weight continues to drop down, you may find that the triglycerides continue to drop down. There are a lot of factors which we don't know all of them, but that would be my thought at this point.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I wouldn't worry about it. Keep focusing on the joy in your life. Arun. You can unmute. Arun. There you
Okay.
go.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I understand from the video that you just showed a little while ago that in the paleo diet, the problem is the meat. Is that correct?
I'm not sure that's the only problem. I think there isn't there some, is there no dairy in paleo? I guess there's no dairy in
No
paleo.
dairy.
So
Meat.
the meat is probably the main issue there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know when I came from India, I was a vegetarian, a lacto-vegetarian. I came here and I started eating meat, and my weight, you know, went up by about 40 pounds, and I was having shoulder and joint pains within a matter of, 6 months. And it went away after I stopped eating meat. And the weight went down by at least 25 pounds.
That's a great story. We love to hear that.
Another tidbit with the paleo is so the original author of the paleo diet is a gentleman named Boyd Eaton. And Boyd Eaton actually came out and made a statement saying that after seeing some updated science in the last 10 years or so, he made a statement saying, well, you know, the original paleo diet that he created, he would say, if he wanted to give some updated advice, which he did, he'd say, really try to minimize the meat, try to keep it really low and go with more plant sources of protein, go with, you know, beans and whole grains and things like that. So he actually backed off a bit from that. And the other thing too is, you know, the original, there's a really good lecture by Brenda Davis, who's a dietitian, well-published dietitian from Canada. I've seen her give many presentations, and she actually gives a presentation about the paleo diet. The original paleo diet, it's actually mostly a plant-based diet, and if you're following it the way it was designed, it's like almost 90% plant-based. And so, but when you go to the store and you see the foods that that people that are saying they're following paleo, they're not necessarily following the paleo diet. They're just buying the products that are marketed. It's like I've seen at Costco, there's like a pancake mix that are, say, paleo pancakes. It's like that's processed, you know, so that's not really the way that the diet was designed originally, is not to eat processed foods, and that's completely processed. So, you know, so what people are actually doing when they're following a particular diet isn't necessarily the way the diet was originally you know, created. And when it was studied, you know, when you actually do studies on diets, you know, oftentimes the way that the people are following the diet in the study is more pure, is actually the way it was originally. Just like Mediterranean is the same way. People that, you know, back in the 1950s, when they originally studied the Mediterranean diet, you know, the farmers were walking 9 miles a day on average, and they were only getting 1.5 teaspoons of olive oil a day, and their 95% of their calories came from whole plant foods. That was the original Mediterranean diet, and that's what the diet, the PREDIMED study out of Spain used to do the studies that showed some benefits. But when you look at how people that are saying they're following Mediterranean diet, they're dousing everything in cups and cups of oil, and they're eating tons of fish and tons of cheese and some vegetables, and then, you know, so they're not necessarily following a very healthy version of it. I think it's a good point to make with the diet, these diet wars tonight.
And that's a perfect segue into, for many of you, you've heard about the Mediterranean diet. You've thought about it, well, maybe I should be eating that because that's what my doctor recommends. And so I want to share this next video with you to kind of vegan diet or Mediterranean diet, which is healthier. And when it says vegan diet, it doesn't mean a junk food vegan diet. It means a whole plant food diet. Foods is grown in nature versus the Mediterranean diet. So let's see what Gregor has to say about that.
Thanks again for joining us. Mediterranean diets, they're healthy. They're in the news all the time.
That's not quite the one that I wanted to share with you. It is, I'll share that with you sometime later, perhaps. Let's see. It's Flashback Friday is what I wanted. And it is, where is it? Flashback Friday. Must be here somewhere. Ketogenic. Huh. Maybe it was in a different section that I had this. Okay. Ketogenic diet. All right, I am going to play Neil Bernard's vegan diet versus the Mediterranean. Okay.
Thanks again for joining us. Mediterranean diets, they're healthy. They're in the news all the time. How do they compare to other kind of diets? And is there a little bit of mythology in all of this? What I thought I might do is talk about Mediterranean diets and contrast them with vegan diets and other diets. And I think what we're going to see is that it's not one versus the other. They overlap in big ways. But let's have a look. A vegan diet means that you're eating fruits and grains and legumes and vegetables, and it can be interpreted in all different ways. A vegan diet means grains and fruits and vegetables, legumes, could have nuts and seeds, but it excludes animal products. And that could be an Italian meal, obviously. That could be Mexican with beans and rice and veggie fajitas. It could be interpreted through Chinese cuisine. So vegan is not a cuisine, obviously. It's not a part of the world. It just means certain things are excluded. It could be Japanese. Now, a Mediterranean diet actually means I'm driving down the coast of Tuscany and I don't really care what I eat because it's just so darn beautiful here. And the notion of a Mediterranean diet as a term was coined by Ansel Keys, who was at the University of Minnesota. And one February morning, he looked out of his window thinking, why am I here? And he thought, wouldn't it be nice to be in southern Italy? And found through some really innovative research at the time that diet made a big difference in whether you lived or died from cardiovascular disease. And Italy did not do the best, but it was pretty good. If you see on this graph, Japan had the lowest degenerative heart disease death rates. Italy was second. So the idea of the Mediterranean diet was born to look at the diets of that region. Now, the Mediterranean region is vast. It includes all of North Africa, parts of the Middle East, and all across the bottom of Europe. But what Keys had in mind was really southern Italy and its neighbors to the east and to the west, so Greece, France, and maybe parts of Spain. And the diet has had all different kinds of meanings, but it has been codified to mean lots of plant foods, not so much processing. Dessert is not going to be pudding, it'll be fruit. If you use fat, it would be olive oil. Dairy products are low, eggs are low, meat is low. And wine is consumed in low to moderate amounts. One thing is important. When Keys was using archetypal Italian villages to design what the diet meant, he was looking at a place called Nicotera in particular. The fat content of their diet was 23% of calories. So, in other words, relatively low. For all those people who imagine that a Mediterranean diet means opening up a bottle of olive oil and drowning your food in it, their fat content was much less than ours is here in North America. Okay, so the basics. Let's go back and just talk about what are we trying to get a diet to accomplish. With regard to heart disease, of course, the higher your cholesterol level, the higher your risk of dying of coronary disease. And so what makes your cholesterol go up? Well, saturated fat, the solid fat, every 1% rise in your saturated fat intake will lead to roughly a 2% rise in LDL. And despite the egg industry trying to make cholesterol look okay, dietary cholesterol does contribute to plasma cholesterol as well. So which foods have them? And if you look at animal products, and if you contrast them with plant products, you see something quite dramatic. Animal products have cholesterol, and they have a substantial amount of saturated fat. Plant products have no cholesterol and are extraordinarily low in saturated fat in most cases. By the way, let's take a look at Chinook salmon. You see that up there? For all the people who imagine that wild-caught salmon is somehow low in saturated fat or low in cholesterol, it's much more like beef than it is like broccoli. Okay, now what about things that we wish our foods did have, like fiber or vitamin C? So animal products are not plant-derived. They don't have fiber. They don't have vitamin C, but you see lots of it in plant foods, lots of fiber, lots of vitamin C, and other antioxidants as well. Okay, so there have been a number of clinical trials on plant-based diets, and Dean Ornish did his elegant studies, and although he described them yesterday, I want to just go back over some of the really key points. He wanted to see if we could not prevent heart disease, but reverse it with a 4-step program of vegetarian foods, half-hour walk, managing stress, which is why no physicians were in the study, avoid tobacco, and after a year, the experimental group had a massive drop in total cholesterol and in LDL compared to an untreated control or a usual care control group. Their weight loss was impressive despite the fact that there was no calorie counting. And what made medical history was angiographic evidence that the arteries were opening up. And you could see this in a year's time with no medication in 82% of patients. A similar trial was done in India to see if in a very different population you could have similar results. So
I'm going to stop here, and I want to show you one other thing, especially for those people who are new. And I want to go to Gregor's site. Let me see, the nutritionfacts.org. So if you want to go to his site, you type in nutritionfacts.org. And here is famous Dr. Gregor. And what we're going to be looking for is improving on the Mediterranean diet. This is what I wanted to show you, this video here. So let's take this out of the way. And see if I can get this started with a push.
The traditional Mediterranean diet can be considered as a mainly, but not exclusively, plant-based diet, and certainly not a whole food plant-based diet, as olive oil and wine can be considered essentially fruit juices. Even if one is eating a vegetarian diet, an entirely plant-based version, there are a number of potentially problematic nutritional aspects that are rarely talked about. For example, lots of white bread, white pasta, not a lot of whole grains. Alcohol can be a problem. The caloric density with all that oil can be high, as well as the salt intake. Let's go over these one by one. In this anatomy of the health effects of the Mediterranean diet, while the single most important component was the high consumption of plant foods, in contrast, high cereal consumption, meaning high grain consumption, did not appear to help. This may be because most grains modern Mediterranean dieters eat are refined, like white bread, whereas the traditional Mediterranean diet was characterized by unprocessed cereals, in other words, whole grains. And while whole grains have been associated with a lower risk of diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, refined grains may increase the risk of diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and other chronic diseases. For example, in the Predimed study, those who ate the most white bread, but not whole grain bread, gained significant weight. Alcohol may also be a problem. As a plant-centered diet, no surprise adherence to a Mediterranean diet is associated with lower cancer risk, but not with lower breast cancer risk. With all the fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, beans, and low saturated fat, you'd assume there'd be a lower breast cancer risk. But alcohol is a known breast cancer risk factor, even moderate amounts. So if you create a special adapted version of the Mediterranean diet score that excludes alcohol, the diet does appear to reduce breast cancer risk then. The wonderful grape phytonutrients in red wine can improve our arterial function, such that if you drink de-alcoholized red wine with the alcohol removed, you get a significant boost in endothelial function, the ability of our arteries to relax and dilate normally, increasing blood flow. But if you drink the same red wine with the alcohol added back in, it abolishes the beneficial effect. It counteracts the benefit of the grape phytonutrients, so better just to eat grapes. Similarly, there are components of olives, the antioxidant phytonutrients that may help endothelial function. But when consumed as oil, even extra virgin olive oil may impair arterial function. So even if white bread dipped in olive oil is the very symbol of the Mediterranean diet, we can modernize it by removing oils and refined grains. Another important, albeit frequently ignored, issue in the modern Mediterranean diet is sodium intake. Despite evidence linking salt intake to high blood pressure, heart disease, and strokes, dietary salt intakes in the U.S. is on the rise. Right now we get about 7 to 10 grams a day, mostly from processed foods. If we were to decrease that just by 3 grams, which is about 1,000 milligrams of sodium, half a teaspoon of table salt every year, we could save tens of thousands of people from having a heart attack, prevent tens of thousands of strokes, and tens of thousands of deaths. There's a common misconception that only certain people should reduce their salt intake and that for the vast majority of the population, salt reduction is unnecessary. But in reality, the opposite is true. But there's much we can learn from the traditional Mediterranean diet. A defining characteristic of the Mediterranean diet is an abundance of plant foods. One thing that seems to have fallen by the wayside: no real Mediterranean meal is replete without lots of greens, a key part of not only a good Mediterranean diet, but of any good diet.
Okay, so to sum up on that, I hope you got the point. Whole grains versus the processed grains. And I know you love your bread, but it's a processed grain. So, be careful about adding too much of that into your diet, and try to stick with the groats or the oats or the barley or the kamut or the whole grain, quinoa. Try to focus your attention on those to get the satisfaction of eating the breads in your life, if you choose to. And then the alcohol, remember, if you just take out the alcohol from the red wine, it'll be good. That sounds like grape juice to me. But eating the grapes is probably the healthiest. And then the oil, if you noticed, it impairs arterial function. Most of you with high blood pressure or stiff arteries don't really want impaired arterial function. You want unimpaired or improved function. So the less oil you put into your body in that processed form, the healthier you'll be. And the sodium, think about that. If you're not eating a lot of processed foods, you're probably not getting a lot of salt in your diet. You can have up to 2/3 of a teaspoon. Make sure you get some iodine so you don't become hypothyroid by not having any iodine in your diet. And with that, I'm going to end it, see if you have any questions, and go from there.
One thing that I like to, one
Go
thing I
ahead.
like to add about Mediterranean diet, since we're talking so much about that tonight, is what doesn't get talked about a lot is that the Predimed study, which I mentioned earlier, that's the biggest study using the Mediterranean diet out of Spain, and it actually showed a 30% reduction in stroke, but it did not show any risk reduction in heart attack. It just only stroke. So so if that's such the popular diet that cardiologists and everybody recommends, well, hasn't been shown to reduce the risk of heart attack. It does reduce the risk of stroke by about 30%. But then if you actually go deeper into the study and you look at the quartiles, or I think it was even quintiles, which what that means is if you actually break down what people are eating in the various groups, you take the highest plant-based quintile, which means that the group of the thousands of people in that study, the ones that ate the most whole plant foods and the least amount of meat, oil, dairy, and refined grains, the ones that ate the most plant-based, whole food plant-based style of diet, only in that group did they actually show a reduced risk of heart attack. So overall, as a group, it didn't show any reduced risk of heart attack, only stroke. But then if you go to the group that ate the most, the way that Charlie and I are teaching you to eat, that's only then did it show some risk reduction in heart attack, which kind of just goes with the Ornish and the Esselstyn studies and everything else. So it's just one of those little things that most people that recommend that diet don't even know that data. They haven't looked at it that closely to tease that out.
Great point. Abby and Doug.
Yeah, I'm on a strict gluten-free diet, and I'm transitioning to whole food plant-based. Occasionally, I have some pomegranate juice or tart cherry juice. I put a couple ounces in a glass of water. My ears pricked up when they talked about dealkalized wine. Is there any downside to using that for flavor for when I drink water?
Pomegranate and tart cherry.
I don't think that there would be too much of a downside with that. It might be if you were eating tons of sugar or something like that, free sugars, If you're just eating it as a flavoring, you're probably going to be okay.
But with the wine, there's some,
With wine,
you know, with the wine without the alcohol. Is there much sugar in that?
I don't know. Do you have the answer to that, Scott?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't think there's any free sugar. It would just be some fructose from
Yeah.
the grapes, I would think. I don't know. I'm not is anyone, if anyone else knows if they've made wine or or whatever. Know anything
Yeah, I'm
about
not sure how it's made, but I imagine if you wanted a little flavoring, it would probably be okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Joe.
Hi. By the way, wine has tons of sugar. Tons.
Okay.
Oh,
I wanted to ask if on Saturday, do we bring anything? I've never been to one of, is it a potluck or snacks will be provided? I know that's what you said, but
yeah. No, you don't need to bring anything. We'll get there and we'll kind of just socialize for a little bit, let people kind of straggle in. We'll start at 2:00, but probably we'll start the movie about probably closer to 2:30, 2:20, 2:30, and then watch the movie. It's a little over an hour, and then we'll go out into the other room where we came in, and it'll just be lots of fruits and vegetables and some hummus and some other things that Eugene Plant-Based Providers were all volunteering to bring. And so just bring yourself.
okay, I'll try to make it. Thank you.
Are you signed up on the website?
I think so.
Okay.
I
Great.
asked a friend. I don't know if she'll come, but
Okay.
Great. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Anybody else have any questions or any comments they want to make for the group or just for the fun of it?
Hank and Dolly, are you guys going to be able to make it? Oh, good. Oh, good.
Linda, I see you have your hand up, and then maybe Lisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with a lot of these diets, I think if any of them worked so wonderfully, you would see it in the news. I don't know if it's just that it's spring and swimsuit weather is coming, but I have been plagued on Facebook lately by these weight loss gummies and shapewear and all this stuff. And I keep reporting like those gummies and stuff as spam or scams, because if they really work, don't you think that on the nightly news it would say a miracle has been found to help overweight people lose weight, and you should never fall for that stuff.
Yeah, it's easy to get sucked in though.
Yeah, we're certainly hearing a lot about Ozempic and those kind of things because that does work, but they don't tell you it's $1,300 to $1,600 a month, and your insurance won't cover it, and it has side effects such as thyroid cancer, pancreatitis, gallbladder disease, muscle fatigue, diarrhea. There's lots of side effects, and then as soon as you stop taking it, if you can afford to spend $1,300 to $1,600 a month, as soon as you stop taking it, the weight will come right back on. So
yeah, and the other weight loss drugs that cause anal leakage. No thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to get to Arun next, but first, Lisa, do you have anything you need to add for the group to invite anybody to any session or Facebook issue or book club or anything like that?
Just the usual. I'm available for one-on-one health coaching if you find yourself wanting a little extra support. And you can find me also on our Facebook page, which you're welcome to join. And we do have our book club meeting coming up on the 27th at the end of the month.
So Lisa's our third-year medical student who has been doing this for a couple of years now, and a lot of people have been helped with her counseling, and so it's free. And so thanks for sharing that, Lisa. Arun. Go ahead and unmute yourself and then Susan.
Thank
And then
you,
Evie.
thank you. Yeah, so last month, I think either Charlie or Scott recommended this couple of doctors who were doing this workshop on heart disease. So I attended some of it, and one of them seemed to indicate that CoQ10 was a good supplement to take. What's your take on, CoQ10 supplement?
If you're taking a statin, then taking CoQ10 is an appropriate thing because it apparently lowers that level in
I
your
see.
body. But if you're not
Okay.
taking a statin, then you shouldn't need to take CoQ10.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Susan,
Well, I just wanted to bring up, a few weeks ago, you mentioned that on 60 Minutes, they had that segment about the drug for obesity.
yes.
I just wanted, you've probably heard about it, but I didn't hear it addressed, just to let people know that Dr. Bernard is suing them and saying they need to say at the beginning of one of their 60-minute shows that divulged the fact that they were being supported somewhat by that drug company, and that it was more of an advertisement, and that they went overboard and they should apologize and clear the air about that.
I actually saw that myself, and I think that's good. That's what Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine,
Yeah.
they are trying to promote fairness and equity, and they're right on this issue. It really upset me, that segment. I watch 60 Minutes all the time, and I was sad to see it, and good for Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Abby and Doug.
I looked up the sugar in wines, and some wines have tremendous amount of sugar. But when I used to drink wine, it's Cabernet Sauvignons, and it says for a 5-ounce glass that has 1 gram of sugar.
Wow. 1 gram.
Right.
That's not a lot.
No.
Yeah, so 1 gram is okay. I mean, that's what, 4 calories or something like that? Not a problem.
Yeah, and I just use it for flavoring. I put 1 or 2 ounces in a glass of water.
Okay. Anything else? Dolly, I see your hand.
Well, I have to tell you, our granddaughter, she came on one of the walks with us, and she loves our diet. And every time she comes over, she has this whole list of stuff she wants me to make for her. So we have fun with that. But she's coming with us on Saturday because she loves snacks. And she wants to get ideas to take home to ask Mom if Mom will start making snacks like this. So you've got another fan out there.
That's great. Good story. Good way to end the meeting. I think we've had some pretty good interaction. We've enjoyed spending time with all of you. We're like, what, 10 minutes? We could go a half hour after, but it's getting close to Lisa's bedtime, and we've got to get up in the morning. We're giving a talk on the global health, whatever it is they do, telemedicine, global health, and we're going to spend some time together sharing our thoughts on how to change the health of the world 1 bite at a time. So we're looking forward to that.
And next week's an open forum, so it'll be all time. The whole time will be for you guys to ask questions and interact. It'll be great.
Thank you, Scott, for everything, and thank all the rest of you for everything, and we'll see you next time around.
All right, and see as many of you as we can on Saturday.
We'll be there.
All right.